Hi, everybody. Just want to say thank you to the conference working group. This has been a really brilliant conference, so many great talks. So yeah, my name's Siobhan, and as you said, I'm the academic support librarian at Chelsea College of Arts. I'm also the person who looks after the collections there. And today I'm doing this rather long titled talk called Collaborating, Connecting and Creating a Feminist Response to the Chelsea College of Arts Library Special Collections through Exhibition Making. It's about a collaborative project that I undertook with a feminist research group that exists at CCW. So Chelsea is part of University of the Arts of London. So it's a big, mega art school with 6 different art colleges that are part of it. And Chelsea, Campbell and Wimbledon, the 3 smaller colleges, are kind of grouped together. So the staff in this project were from across the 3 sites. So about the collaboration, in the library, we've got a number of display cases, some old style Victorian ones and some newer sort of museum standard ones. They are used to display work from our special collections, but they're also available for students and staff to propose exhibitions to put work into the cases. It's very popular. We have a really busy program of exhibitions throughout the year. Recently, we had work in all of the cases by 3 different students as part of the degree show, which was really exciting and really nice. Back in 2023, earlier than that, September, great time to be approached, just the start of term, in academic library. I was contacted by a member of staff called Rosemary Cronin, who I'd worked with before. She's a widening participation tutor at UAL. And she told me that she was part of a feminist research group called Subjectivities and Feminisms. And they were interested in doing an exhibition and looking for a space to do it. In their words, Subjectivities and Feminisms were founded 21 years ago, and they embrace a legacy of feminist thinking and performance and questions whether and how subjectivity is a transitive process and whether and how it's attached to identity. So they were looking to do something in March 2024 as part of International Women's Day and asked if they could use the library cases, but it was a bit vague. And as I'm a very opportunistic person when it comes to promoting our collections, I had an even conversation with Rosemary. I said, well, why don't we try and bring the special collections into this somehow? Maybe we could work with those, maybe we could add them into this show. And through this kind of dialogue and conversation, we developed the idea that the members of the group would make work in reaction to items from our special collections that they'd selected. And I'll just talk a bit about our special collections. So at Chelsea, we've got some amazing special collections. The one we're probably most famous for is our artist books collection. It began in the 1970s and it continues to grow today. It's a really fantastic collection. There's about 5,500 items in it as of now. We've also got a large collection of artist multiples, about 550. That isn't added to as actively, but there's very strong representation of material from the sort of 70s and 90s in particular, when multiple art was very popular. And we also have significant collections of rare journals and ephemera, so artists' ephemera, which is sort of private view cards, posters, things like that. And also archive collections. I also have to sort of pretend to be an archivist as part of my job, which is a good laugh. And so in terms of developing the exhibition, the group came to visit the special collections twice. They came into our special collections room, which is that room there. I'll go back to that slide and just show you that. I should also say that our special collections are used really heavily in teaching and learning. It's very much a sort of active teaching collection used with courses both at Chelsea, the wider UAL colleges, external visitors. We get a lot of external visitors too. And students can request anything in our special collections and look at it in the library. It's really very accessible for special collections and a really great collection, yeah. So in terms of developing the exhibition, the group visited twice, and by visiting, they were looking at different material, identifying what they wanted to work with. Some of them were already familiar with the special collections and knew exactly what they wanted, and it was very straightforward. Others kind of flip-flopped, picked one thing, then picked another thing. We had sort of interesting dialogues about their interests, so we could use the sort of catalogue to identify material and kind of knowledge that I had of material in our collections that I thought they might be interested in. There were some challenges about doing this project, which I'll talk about now. Initially, the group had the idea to make work in response to pieces of sort of material made by men. But they decided that some of the group wanted to and were drawn to work by female artists, so that got scrapped, but that got scrapped quite far down the line. So more visits had to be kind of booked in, which at that particular time, it was the first term of the academic year, which was very busy, quite stressful. The artists, the members of staff made work in different mediums, and some of them were asking to make work in mediums that would be quite difficult to support. So obviously we have the cases in the library, but we don't necessarily have the capacity to show AV material. It's a working library. Screens and kind of installations have to be balanced with the fact that these cases are in our sort of study spaces and in our group study room. So we had to negotiate what was possible. There was one member of staff who really wanted to wheat paste posters all over the wall of our library. And I had to sort of delicately steer her away from that because the thought of trying to scrape them off after the show didn't seem kind of so appealing. And yeah, time commitments. So as I mentioned before, it was a really busy time of the year, that first term of an academic year. And sort of doing all the administration around it was quite, could be quite challenging, like kind of balancing that with all the other work that was going on. So the exhibition was then installed over 2 days in March in 2024, and it was called Undoing, so the group chose this title, Undoing, Redoing, Revolting, a feminist response to the special collection at Chelsea College of Art. It was also a bit of a nod to the show that was on across the road at the Tate at the time, Women in Revolt, which was a big sort of survey show of feminist art. So it was a nod to that, and that's the flyer for it that the group made. And I've just got some pictures of the show. So this is one of our academics, Lana, installing her work in the cases in the library. And then in the other slide here is the private view that we had. So we had a nice little gathering to open the show. That's the old college library space that we have at Chelsea. And you can see in the background the older museum style cases where some people exhibited work. And then here are just some examples of work that the group members made. So on this slide here is a reaction to Ed Ruscha's business cards. So obviously Ed Ruscha, phonetically spelling his name as business cards, are sort of fairly famous artist multiple now. And Fran, one of the artists, made her own version where she phonetically spelled out her own name instead. And then in the picture next to this, this member of the group made work in reaction to the artist books of Ida Applebrug. So Ida Applebrug's books are these sort of small, square, blue books that have quite graphic novel or sort of comic-like sensibilities, kind of quite filmic looking books using the color blue. The thematic kind of topics in them are quite, can be quite like emotionally devastating and quite sad. And the idea of kind of emergency and kind of trauma, I suppose, comes up in her work. And the artist here put together, mirroring the kind of visual language of the book, a sort of emergency survival kit based on the work of Ida Applebrug and the kind of colors and visual styles that she used. It was a really nice piece of work. And then in our old style cases, as I mentioned, in the old college library, we've got these older Victorian style cases. This was a piece by Denise Ackrill where she made 4 postcards as a response to this publishing catalogue that's a toilet roll from our multiples collection. It's the JP Ringier report. So it was really interesting to see the different ways that some of the artists engaged with the work quite literally and very much copied it. Others not so much, kind of engaged in a more sort of aside way. So just a couple of things about the project, and how it all kind of panned out, the positives of it, I suppose. The project really allowed me to build on existing relationships that I had with staff, and also develop new ones. So I had worked with Rosemary, for example, which is why she approached me in the first instance, for the piece of for the show, sorry. And it was also really good to get to know new members of staff I'd never worked with before. Some of them have since brought their students in to do special collection sessions in the library, which has been fantastic. It's a really good way to showcase the creative potential of our special collections material. So we've talked about, I think there've been a couple of talks where we have spoken, where people have spoken about the idea of seeing the library as a place for more creative research rather than just a place for sort of academic research. And being able to kind of show these very creative direct responses to particularly our students who are coming in and asking about the work, asking what the show was about, talking about it. I think it was a great way to show that potential, and really kind of showcase that. It also helped me to see familiar special collections items in new ways. So when you work with, I'm sure when you work with like collections, you become very familiar with them. They become like the greatest hits, you know what to say about them. You talk about them in a certain way, but seeing how other sort of artists or other members of staff have a very different take or a very different response to them is really fascinating. And it's something that then, I've incorporated into other sessions, other sort of ways of talking about these pieces of material. So that's been really, really good and really sort of fascinating. And then one of the other great things was that 2 of the publications that were created for the show were actually donated to the special collections afterwards. And one of them is here. So if you may be familiar with the work of Lucy Lipard, feminist art critic, curator. She did a set of exhibitions called the Numbers Shows. And she basically asked lots of artists to submit on an index card a proposal for a show. The work may get made, it may not get made. Some of the works would have been impossible to make. It existed conceptually as the catalogue, the work, and the work of art in its own right. So it kind of existed on these different levels. It's one of my favourite pieces in the collection. And Jill Addison, one of our staff members, that she made her own version of this. So these index cards, every member of the group made their own kind of proposal card. Everybody wrote it up. Obviously, all the works were made in this case, but she then submitted it to the library. So we have this in our collection now, which is really nice. So it's a nice kind of catalogue of the show, documentation of the show, artist book. It works in the same way as Lipard's piece on these different levels. And then it's also inspired similar projects using special collections. So a colleague of mine has since gone on to work with a sort of cross-course reading group where they have also taken the strategy of choosing special collections items and making kind of responses to them, usually written responses. And that's resulted in 2 publications now. So again, they've come into the library. So it's that generative, similar to what Susanna was talking about, that generative process, that idea of it being a very generative thing that's been really great and a really great thing that's come out of it. And that is everything I want to say. It's very lightning. So thank you very much. That's my contact details. If you have any questions, I'd be very happy to answer them. Thank you.